Hi, good morning. Arigatou gozaimasu, gozaimashita. Assalamu alaikum and ayubowan. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you all to another interesting productivity talk by the Asian Productivity Organization on the topic of public sector productivity, challenges and opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, you all are warmly welcome. I'm welcoming you all right to this a very important event. I am RPA Vimalavira, APO Director for Sri Lanka and Secretary to the Ministry of Labour and Foreign Employment. I'm indeed happy to be the moderator for today's speech talk, and I'm giving my appreciation and my thanks goes to Asian Productivity Organization for selecting me for this task, ladies and gentlemen. So, well, the public sector plays an important role during times of socio-economic challenges as productivity and competitiveness are important drivers of growth. To raise productivity or to raise public sector productivity rather, more focus on outcome and identifying challenges and bottlenecks is needed. Improved public sector productivity not only raises overall living standards but also paves the way for economic recovery and sustained economic development. Moreover, if we have improved productivity in the public sector, it provides some kind of a conducive environment for the business, continuity of the business, and also it helps to attract foreign direct investment, improve the investment as well. The recent COVID-19 pandemic, ladies and gentlemen, has affected our lives in myriad ways and impacted public sector operations as well. We have experienced this, the couple of in 2020, 21, even 22 as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, today's speech will discuss the public sector challenges in developing countries in the post-pandemic era and the opportunities and methods to overcome those challenges. So, we are fortunate to have our speaker today, Joint Secretary Mr. Mohammed Asif, with us today to share his views on the importance of public sector productivity. The challenges, not only that, the importance of the public sector productivity, the challenges posed, and opportunities available to overcome those challenges and raise productivity. We can all learn from Joint Secretary Mr. Asif about the elements required for boosting productivity in the public sector and making public service more agile and resilient. Good morning, Joint Secretary Mr. Asif. Thank you so much for giving us your valuable time. How are you today, sir?
Thank you very much, Mr. Vimalavira, and good morning and wa alaikum assalam. And I wish you a very pleasant time for the remaining part of the day. I'm good and wish you all good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You also, let me once again warmly welcome you to this speech talk. Before his speech talk, ladies and gentlemen, let me give a brief introduction to our speaker. Mr. Mohammed Asif is presently Joint Secretary, Ministry of Industries and Production in Pakistan. He has more than 25 years of experience in public sector administration in diverse fields and holds master's degrees, not only one, master's degrees in public management, both Harvard University, USA, and National University of Singapore. Right. As well as he has a master's degree in English from Punjab University, Pakistan as well. His main areas of experience and interest include corporate governance, public sector productivity, public policy, public finance management, customs regulation, law enforcement, industrial growth, international trade, leadership, and change management, whatnot. You name it, he has it. Moreover, he has written numerous papers and publications for Harvard University, National University of Singapore, and National School of Public Policy of Pakistan. Okay, well, he has, well, uh, worth of, information and also the knowledge. He has served, in many areas. So therefore, we will be able to get much more things from today's Pito from you, sir. And now I will turn over the session to Joint Secretary Mr. Asif to share his thoughts, and floor is over to you, sir. Please.
Thank you very much once again, Mr. Vimalavira, for such an elaborate introduction. It has actually humbled me. So if you allow, may I proceed with my presentation?
Yes, yes, of course.
So today's topic is public sector productivity. And the topic is really challenging in the sense that the definition of public sector productivity has always been a matter of concern for the people who are in the issue of defining such things. So first of all, let us see what is actually public sector productivity. So when we talk of public sector productivity, most of the time we talk of things like what is we are putting in and what we are getting out of it. It's like input is equal to output. But with the passage of time, things have been changing, and with the passage of time, the definition of productivity is also going a lot of under discussion, and lot of changes are being introduced into it. For example, when we talk of public sector productivity, we need to know actually whether it is just a ratio of input to output, or some issue or some matter of quality is also attached to it. I would like to elaborate in a way that when we simply talk of ratio of inputs to outputs, we can elaborate that this is an efficient way of doing things. But simultaneously, the matter comes to our mind, is this the way of measurement of effectiveness also? To me, this is a moot point for today's talk. So when we say that we have put certain amount of input into a task of an economic unit, and this has given a certain amount of output, and the quality of output is not as per desire of the person who has placed that input into the economic unit. So what would we think of? Is it a low productivity or is it high productivity? So in this way, we have to measure what is what is a relationship between efficiency and effectiveness. When we talk of efficiency, that is ratio of inputs to outputs, we are most of the time talking about cost cutting. So in public sector organizations, there is a vast tendency that we try to place some cut on our budgets. We try to reduce the cost of inputs uh, just to show that we have reduced our cost as compared to previous years. We have reduced our budget as compared to previous year. And in the process of that, sometimes we have to resort to laying off our staff. We have to resort to decrease the number of staffs just to put in place the figures that previously a certain number of employees were doing this job, but now to enhance our efficiency, we have reduced number of employees, we have reduced number of machines, we have reduced number of working hours, but still we are producing the same amount of output. So quantity remains the same, quantity of output remains the same, rather better to say, but the quantity of input is reduced. So most of the time we are happy with it that we have increased our efficiency. And when we link efficiency or we term it synonymous with productivity, so this creates a lot of distortion in the definition of productivity. What is the other side of the coin? The other side of the coin is that if we are really going to improve our productivity, we must bring in, or we must factor in the role of effectiveness. We must think that if I have reduced the number of inputs, if I have reduced the amount of input, if I have reduced the quantity of the input, whether I have been compromising on the quality of the output. So uh, sometimes it happens, but rather most of the time it happens that layoffs done for the cost cutting, they result in compromise on quality of the output. So efficient and effective utilization of government resources, that should be the answer to this question. So with this background and definition of public sector productivity, the next thing that comes to our mind is that what, after all, public sector productivity enhancement is required for? Why? Why we are after this? The answer is the public sector works for the people. All public sectors are working for the betterment of the people. So when we talk of public sector productivity, we are essentially linked to public sector governance. So when we talk of public sector governance, the main idea that comes to our mind is the determination and accomplishment of collective goals, because public sector works for the collective well-being of a society, of a nation, or a certain conglomerate of the people. So we should ask ourselves that when we are talking of betterment in public sector governance, whether people matter or not. So that directly links to my earlier highlighted point that whether people matter or not, if we are going to increase our efficiency by giving a lot of layoffs, by putting a lot of people off the job, so is it really a public sector productivity? Shouldn't we think that people who have been laid off, whether they matter or not for the public sector governance or public sector productivity for that matter? The next point that comes to our mind is delivery of public goods and services. So when our ultimate motive is to provide quality services to the people who are being governed by a particular government or a particular set of governments. So if we are just reducing input and maintaining the quantity of the output, but at the same time we are compromising on the quality of the service being provided to the people of that country, so is it a good productivity, or is it a low side of the productivity? So that ultimately takes us to the conclusion that we must establish some sort of balance between effectiveness and efficiency. Just being efficient doesn't mean that simultaneously we are effective. So, sitting in the context of Asia, I can quote a lot of examples from Asia, but just to bring some outside analysis, I have chosen to put in place some analogy from United States, and 1990 is the reference period. Those were the times when the increase in public sector productivity in United States was at its peak. The growth rate was about more than 9%. But simultaneously, if we analyze it in the context of definition of public sector productivity, which I have put in place in 2 slides back, we see that they were more inclined towards effectiveness and less inclined towards just efficiency. We can see that while the productivity growth was rising to more than 9%, that was time of not very high layoffs. No high layoffs were being witnessed by the people in United States, and unemployment rate was not increasing. Companies were getting simultaneously more profit. Living standards were improving. So what were the factors to which this improvement in productivity and services was being attributed? The tools were, the computers were being made more powerful, their processing speeds were being increased, more innovative retail outlets were being introduced. So actually they were shifting from efficiency to effectiveness. I can quote an example from Pakistan. We have a very elaborate retail chain being run by government of Pakistan. It is being run by public sector. So when we introduce a ERP system in that retail chain, which has about 5,000 outlets across the country, there was an amazing increase in effectiveness of our operations. So we didn't go to any layoffs. We didn't put anybody off the job, but still, by just introducing technology, we have been able to increase our effectiveness in that organization, and we have been able to get maximum output with minimum input, or without any increase in input, without compromising on quality. I'm again and again referring to the word quality because that matters in my opinion. So not confining myself to just an analogy from public sector, I've also chosen an analogy from private sector, and that too from United States, and that also from that reference period of 1993 to 2000. That was the time when growth in private sector productivity averaged 75%. That is amazing. So what were the factor? Advanced processing speeds were being introduced in an advanced way, while the prices of chips stayed almost same with slight variation. The powerful and useful chips were being introduced, which were more useful for the consumers. So I would not say that prices were remaining the same, but the people over there, they try to opt for quality adjusted price measures. While there was slight increase in prices, there was huge increase in outputs. So if I try to wind up the discussion on the definition of public sector productivity linked with private sector productivity simultaneously, I would like to remove some misperceptions which have traditionally been attached to the definition of public sector productivity or productivity overall. So most of the time, we confuse the word productivity gain with savings. So sometimes we use it these two terminologies interchangeable. That is regrettable. Most of the researchers are now terming it regrettable. So we should keep in mind that in future we are not going to use productivity gain as synonymous with savings. Saving is just one factor. So when people talk of public sector productivity, most of the time they talk of costs only. So that is just one factor. So we are not going to put these words as synonymous to each other in future. Yes, cost savings are important in public sector. They are important for governments, but simultaneously, greater imperative for government is improvement in quality and quantity of the services. So yes to saving, but bigger yes to quality and quantity. So we conclude from these 7 slides, which I have shown previously, that the answer to the question of what is public sector productivity is outcome-based government. So it is not just cost saving; it is outcome-based governance. For example, if we talk of tax collection, the ultimate motive is effective tax collection. It is not just increase in number of tax returns filed. It is not just increase in number of people who have been brought into the tax net. If the tax collection is not increased, that is just efficiency, that's not effectiveness. Similarly, if we are talking about health services, we must keep in mind that just putting in place lot of hospitals, and in those hospitals health services are not being provided in an effective way, or people are not getting more healthy as compared to the past. So we are just increasing our efficiency, we are not increasing effectiveness of the government in that sphere. Similarly, if we talk of education, we must think in mind that ultimate result is higher level of student literacy. It's not just that we have put in place certain number of schools. So once again, comparing efficiency and effectiveness, I'm putting a lot of emphasis on these two terms just due to the one reason that we should be conceptually very clear when we are talking of public sector productivity. So the main focus should be on results, not on just activities. So there is a very, very refined difference between results and activities. For example, the number of tax returns processed by the income tax department, that is just an activity. But when, as a result of these number of tax returns filed, we expect some increase in real revenue to be collected, it will be real increase in productivity. Similarly, if we talk about the department which is responsible for extending employment assistance to the people of the country, just issuance of assistant grants is not the end result desired. End result desired is how many people are back in work due to these efforts. So again, if we talk of education, it's not just number of students start in a particular time period by a particular number of teachers in a particular number of schools. Actually, we have to judge what is outcome of literacy, what is level of literacy attained by those students. So results and costs are to be considered as separate endeavors. We should not mix them to each other. So with this conceptual clarification of the concept of public sector productivity in juxtaposition to the concept of private sector productivity, now I would like to use 4 pillars of analysis which can lead us to some conclusion how public sector productivity can be increased, or which factors, which pillars can contribute to it positively or negatively. So these 4 pillars of decentralization, geography, scale, and public policy perspective. So first, talking about decentralization. So decentralization is sometimes considered to be an effective tool of increasing the public sector productivity. The main reasons quoted for this is that when we talk of smaller units of the government, we think that the local administration, the local government will be, regional governments will be better equipped to provide services to the citizens. In Pakistan, we have gone through this experience. In the year 2000, government of Pakistan introduced local government system, which was usually called devolution plan. So we must keep in mind that there are various ways of decentralization. It can be devolution. It it can be devolvement of decision making, and it can be development of decision making authority. Sometimes government, federal government or central governments can devolve certain decision making to certain local or regional governments. This is called devolution. Sometimes they can shift the authority which makes decision on behalf of federal government to the regional or local governments. So in both ways, it is considered that the space available to the people who are sitting at local or regional levels is better than the people who are sitting in remote areas or sitting in the capital and taking decisions about the people who are sitting far away from the decision makers. The bureaucracy is considered to be one of the hurdles in provision of effective government services to the citizens of the people are largely speaking in this part of the world which we call Asia. So in local government and decentralized governments, there are considered to be fewer layers of bureaucracy which can expedite actually the process of service provision to the citizens of that particular area. Uh, it is considered that national governments are better equipped to effectively mobilize the local resources. Similarly, tax collection at local level can better equip the local governors to utilize that money collected for the betterment of the people living in that area. That leads us to the concept of allocative efficiency. So accountability is another factor. In regional or local governments, local people are better equipped to put the people at the helms of affair to the social accountability. There are also other sides of every concept, and decentralization is no exception. It is also its negative points. So one of the major negative points in decentralization is the diseconomies of scale. When we launch a project at a bigger scale, it is quite cost effective. But when we bring it to a smaller scale, obviously this economy of scale that crops in. Similarly, at local or regional level, we see that human capacities are limited, technical capacities are limited, financial resources are limited. All these constraints sometimes lead to result of poorer quality of services. So sometimes there is possibility that at local level we may compromise on quality. Similarly, another factor is that when different localities are being run in a different way, there is a probability of territorial inequalities. Then geography. Next pillar of analysis is geography. So earlier we used to talk of productivity in terms of nations, sectors, firms. For example, we used to say that that particular nation's productivity growth is this percent and that percent. Similarly, we used to say that one particular sector is growing at this speed. A particular firm is working in a way that its productivity is increasing at this ratio. But with the passage of time, new term in this perspective is place based. So we can see that productivity of the people in different places may be different. For example, if we talk of labor sector productivity, we can see that people who are living in remote and rural areas, they are better equipped to do more hard work as compared to people who are living in urban areas and people who are living in more luxurious styles. So the labor productivity may vary from place to place, from geography to geography, from location to location. Similarly, it may vary from climate to climate. In certain climate regions, people may put lot of labor, but in other regions, people may not be able to put lot of labor and get better results. So geography is an important pillar of analysis. Scale. We have touched a little bit on diseconomies of scale, but again, we have seen that agglomeration of economies sometimes produce better results. The living patterns are very important when it comes to provision of service by the public sector. For example, if people are living in an area where there is a density of population, it will be easier to provide them emergency services. It will be easier to stay in touch with the people. It will be easier to provide them education. The distances matter a lot. For example, I have earlier quoted a retail chain working under the government of Pakistan, which is called Utility Stores Corporation of Pakistan. If we have to provide essential eatable items to the people of Pakistan living in a remote area, which is a hilly terrain, we will have to put more effort, we will have to put more money to make these things available to the people of hilly areas. But simultaneously in urban areas or in dense population, it is quite easy and with less amount of inputs. Uh, Similarly, it is said that larger local governments have greater institutional capacity and specialization, and they can be more effective. Recently, there was a comparative analysis of amalgamation reforms in 14 European countries, and the result which have been drawn by the researchers is that amalgamations has improved the service quality in those 14 European countries. So we can safely say that scale matters when it comes to analysis of public sector productivity. The fourth pillar, that is public policy perspective, that is actually very important to me, and that is very close to my heart. As a functionary in public sector, we have seen that most of the time the initiatives of the government aimed at provision of public services to the people of the country meet a failure at implementation level. So the major reason behind that failure to me is that some sort of disconnect between the policy maker and the policy implementers, because in most of the Asian countries we have seen that the policies are devised through top-down approach instead of bottom-up approach. So so people who are at the implementation, and they are actually disconnected with the identification of the problem for which that policy has been devised, and resultantly it is difficult for them to buy our own or take the ownership of that policy. So when the policy implementer is actually not taking the ownership of that policy with heart and soul, it is difficult for him to implement it. So these are some of the key considerations, taking cue from the four pillars I have already mentioned. So actually this interconnection between all these four pillars make it challenging to unpack the relationship between the governing institutions, productivity and scale and geography, etc., etc. So now coming to the almost last part of my presentation, it is desirable to have a look at challenges and opportunities, particularly in the post-pandemic era. So what are the challenges Asian economies, particularly in the context of Pakistan and subcontinent? I would like to say that adopting technologies was one of the major challenges faced by us in the post-pandemic era. But let me share with you that all these challenges has actually turned out to be opportunities for us in the post-pandemic era. So it is always good that we should take the challenges as the opportunities. We can always find opportunities from the challenges. So the table in front of you can be reversed. We can call opportunities as challenges and we call challenges as opportunities. So it is, I would like to elaborate it as interchangeables. So adopting technologies during the pandemic days and in the post-pandemic era, it was very difficult to establish physical contacts between the people, between the service providers and the service takers. So the Zoom meetings idea came up, paperless offices were introduced, ERP systems were introduced. So what was the result? The effectiveness and efficiency of the organizations and the various tiers of the government has improved abundantly. That was amazing. So the challenge was turned into opportunities. Lost of cost cutting was there. For example, if people have to travel from one part of the country to the other part of the country, now they just conduct Zoom meetings. Even these productivity talks, that is an amazing outcome of pandemic era. I suppose that this was the wonderful idea when you can't collect the people at one place. You have adopted a mode in which you can convey your thoughts to the people across the world through these productivity talks on uh, taking advantage of technology. So employment training and development, that is actually a very important factor when we talk of public sector. Most of the time it is difficult to assess that why a particular amount of input is not bringing up desired level of output. So one of the reasons observed is that people who are at the job, they actually don't know their job. So capacity building and making people know their job is very important to enhance the productivity. Similarly, performance management system, that is very important to incentivize the workers to bring up better results. So we need to establish a clear-cut distinction between good, better, and best, and simultaneously not making better the enemy of the good. So we must establish some mechanism of incentives and disincentives to increase the productivity level of the workers. So outcome-focused measurements that is also closely linked to the idea of effectiveness versus efficiency. Similarly, data-driven decision-making and evidence-based policy-making, that is important. Most of the time in government sector, that we see that the policy-making process is crisis-oriented. So in better equipped countries, like if I quote Singapore from Asian perspective, we see that they do a lot of scenario planning, so that when it comes to policy making, lot of working and lot of data based and evidence based working is there. So that also increases the efficiency and effectiveness of government policy making. Nudging is very important concept when it comes to implementation of public sector policy. So instead of putting a lot of resources on enforcement, nudging can save a lot of resources, and you can motivate the people to adopt the ways conceived better for them by the government for the public service provision. Nutrition and health, that is also very important. It is generally said that a healthy body will always have a healthy brain. Instead of spending a lot of money on the health of the people, if we can adopt preventive measures through provision of better food to the people, to the denizens of the country. So we can save a lot of money. So in that way, we can get a lot of better output by giving lesser number of inputs. So at the end of my talk, it is important that while we have talked a lot about theoretical aspects of public sector productivity, we must show the audience actually how it can be translated into reality. So for that purpose, I have chosen a case study from Pakistan, that is citizen feedback monitoring program. It was actually adopted by World Bank in 2018, and World Bank reported it as a success story. Though, so the main feature was that how to improve government service delivery at a local level. So one district of the of Pakistan from the Punjab province was chosen by that head of that district. District is called Jhang. It was in 2008. So the administrative head of that district, we call it deputy commissioner in Pakistan. So he came across a wonderful idea of getting feedback on daily basis from the people who are living in that particular district, because a lot of people used to visit the office of head of that particular district government, and in the evening he would call randomly to many people and get feedback that how they found the provision of public service in his office. So later on, the idea was extrapolated to the province level, and the chief secretary of the province would call a certain number of people from his own phone and get their feedback that if a particular number of people has visited a particular government office, what was their feel about it, whether they were satisfied with the public service provision or not. So some sort of link between the service provider and the people to whom the service is being provided. That was a wonderful idea, and it gave wonderful results. So later on, the technology part was introduced into it, and Punjab Information Technology Board in 2012. It improved on it, and daily number of calls were increased. So it brought about a wonderful result. Robocall system was introduced, and 15,000 calls per day were being made. And later on, it has potential to expand to 75,000 calls per day. So the people who from whom feedback was solicited, it number rose to 29 million citizens. 25 different public services across the Punjab were monitored in just 1 year. That is 2019. And it was just not stopping at that. Actually, they assessed how many correct measures were taken through these feedbacks, and the number was 41,600. That is amazing result. So main tangible improvements in if I quote just one department, that was Punjab Emergency Service Rescue 1122. That was really a success story. So what were the lessons learned from that experience? Monitoring of service delivery providers was more effective when monitor and the service providers were separate entities. That was big challenge when a head of a particular government used to call a particular number of people. Most of the time, and the lower staff used to manage that. Those numbers are their own numbers. So if certain low level employee is supposed to provide service to certain number of people, so most of the time he will give his own number in the data, and the head of that department when he would make call, the call will be received by that employee who against whom actually feedback was required. So the lesson learned was that the monitor and the service providers must be separate entities. Question with a limited set of fixed answers uh, uh, improve the rate and quality of the response. Absence of law to support the CPMF. So it is important that that you should have a law in place to give a back support to such initiatives. That is also very important. And simultaneously, we must be aware of attempts like data fabrication, etc., etc. So this brings to the end of my presentation. A lot of thanks for listening patiently. Now we are open for question and answer sessions.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Asif, for making very insightful presentation highlighting public sector productivity and governance, pillars of analysis including decentralization, geography, scale, and public policy perspective, which I like very much, and key considerations and how to overcome all these challenges. Once again, thank you very much for your very insightful presentation. So let me as we have very limited time, so let me ask a question from the participants. If we have, just I would like to give priority for the audience. If you have any questions, please raise. Is there any particular question? If not, well, uh, uh, Mr. Asif, yes, one question is there. uh, shall
Yeah.
agree. Is productivity being given due importance and relevant institutions strengthened in your country to deliver the improved public service? What would Mr. Asif, would you like to
Uh,
respond?
uh, yeah. Thank you very much for this wonderful question. Actually, if I have rightly listened, your question is productivity being given due importance, and the institutions in your country are being strengthened to deliver the improved public sector productivity. Correct? Is this the question? Yeah. Going ahead with the answer of this question, I would like to update the audience that the productivity is being given importance in Pakistan in such a way that recently the government of Pakistan has launched the productivity movement, and we have come up with national productivity master plan. So the importance can be judged from the fact that our Minister for Planning and Development personally presides every meeting on this productivity movement and public sector productivity national master plan. So a lot of funds. Despite our limited resources and despite the fact that we are facing financial constraints, a lot of funds are being allocated and people are being trained as experts to provide the education on productivity tools. So Pakistan has recently attained the status for accreditation of the productivity master trainers. So you can judge the from this fact that how serious the government of Pakistan is taking this initiative. In future, we plan that the productivity movement will be launched in another robust way by the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So that will give a message across the country that how Pakistan takes it serious. So far as strengthening of institutions is concerned, So Pakistan is in the process of revitalizing the National Productivity Organization, which is actually a contact point of Asian Productivity Organization in Pakistan. We have introduced a very diverse board of directors of National Productivity Organization, and we are planning a lot of trainings. We are planning a lot of hand holding of our industrial sector, and we are planning a lot of hand holding of our public sector also, so that people can be sensitized how how we have to travel from the concept of just efficiency towards effectiveness. Hope
Thank
this
you.
satisfies you.
Thank you very much. May I have another questions from the audience? Yes, right. Were any specific technological solutions or digital innovations highlighted as potential drivers of improved productivity in the public sector? Mr. Amir Kumar, I don't know from which country, but Amir Kumar has raised this question. Right? Were any specific technological solutions or digital innovations highlighted as potential drivers of improved productivity in the public sector? Would you like to respond, Ms. Azri?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very important and specific question. Technology is the most important factor with which we can quote for the improvement of public sector productivity. Just to quote an example, that in United States, which is actually a level of 3.70 of percent of productivity growth. Right now, it was more than 9% in 1990s. Their relevant department is called U.S. Office of Productivity and Technology. So you can well imagine how technology part is closely connected to the productivity part. So it is important when we are just relying on simply manpower for getting greater output with lesser level of input, without compromising on quality. We must keep in mind that human beings have certain limitations. So if we introduce the technology part, we can increase their productivity. To just quote an example, that right now Luxembourg is at the top of productivity level, and Mexico is at the lowest step of the ladder when we talk of public sector productivity. But we analyze it in terms of number of working hours per annum. We see that in Luxembourg, the number of working hours per annum is 1,382. But in Mexico, the number of working hours per annum is 2,128. So where lies the difference? Luxembourg is putting lesser number of hours per annum, but it is at the top step of productivity ladder. Simultaneously, Mexico is putting a more number of working hours per annum, but it is at the lowest step of productivity ladder. Where lies the difference? In my opinion, the difference lies in use of better use of technology. So technology part is very important. And we have seen. I have also highlighted in my presentation that in post-pandemic era, the concept of Zoom meetings, that has actually revolutionized the public sector working. We used to spend a lot of time, we used to spend a lot of money, and we have to travel a lot for conducting a certain number of meetings in different parts of the country. But now we can connect sitting in one office to a whole world. For example, you are sitting in Sri Lanka, I am sitting in Pakistan. APU head office is located in Japan, and we are all connected through this Zoom link. So think otherwise. If this technology was not in place, all of us would have to travel from one place to another place, and we would have been putting a lot of money and resources, with, which has been taken out due to use of this technology. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Asif. You elaborated it very well. So I have taken two questions from the audience, but I also there is another one, right? So I will take this question from the audience as last question because due to time constraint. Nusrat Iftar, the gentleman is raising question. If you can share why why it is difficult to measure the productivity of public sector, that is the question.
Yes, yes. The very, very important question. I have juxtaposed the public sector productivity model with private sector productivity model during course of my presentation, and the public sector productivity model is the most challenging thing. Actually. It depends a lot when we talk of public sector productivity, which service we are talking of. There are myriads of services being provided by the public sector to the people of a country or a society or a particular region or area. So if we talk of healthcare, we will be measuring public sector productivity on different parameters. If we talk of tax collecting machinery of the state, we will be analyzing it in a different way. If we are talking of earning revenue from different sectors, we will be analyzing it in a different way. So the single factor productivity, for example, if we are going to assess labor productivity, which is single factor productivity, it is easy. But when we talk of public sector productivity, we have to go for multi-factor productivity analysis, which is actually a difficult part of defining and analyzing. So it is actually, governments are considered to be complex phenomena. So when the governments are complex and public sector is complex, definition of public sector productivity also becomes a little bit complex.
Thank you very much, Miss Aziz. I'm not going to take any questions because we have only 2-3 minutes. So even though I have some questions to be raised, but I'm keep quiet because of the time constraint. However, for the many questions you elaborated, and if anyone goes through your presentation very carefully, it has opened, right? It has given some inputs to open our mind and think positively and differently, right? Especially the governance issue, right? With the limited resources, how do we balance between efficiency and effectiveness, right? In a small, the country like ours, we have many problems. So, however, during this 1 hour period, Mr. Asif, you have given very insightful presentation. It opens our minds and think many avenues on how to improve the productivity by overcoming the challenges. Joint Secretary Mr. Asif, thank you so much for giving us your insightful insights over the past hour to 1 hour. Our viewers in APO member countries and beyond have gained a lot from this session. Do you have any final thoughts for our viewers before concluding this speech talk? Mr. Asif, just 1 minute.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this last minute given to me, Mr. Vimalavira. Actually, the message I would like to put across to the audience, and particularly my addressees, are people who are working in public sector, that being public servants and being functionaries of public sector organizations, we must keep in mind that our first and foremost effort should be to make this world a better place to live for the human beings, to live for the citizens of different countries. So
Okay.
for that matter, when we talk of increase in public sector productivity, we must keep the human element in our mind. Instead of talking a lot of layoffs, we should talk of increasing our effectiveness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, from my side, from your presentation, what I gathered was, you know, pub- public sector governance is very, very important. And there's a missing link between policymakers and the policy implementers. So we have to bridge this gap, right, in order to improve the productivity. And governance is very important. So thank you very much once again. Let me, my final words, to thank the Asian Productivity Organization for having organized this very important PTO with very important and knowledgeable resource person like Mr. Asif. So thank you very much. And my once again I thank to the APO for organizing this one, and I humbly request the Action Productivity Organization to continue these types of pre-talks, right? I mean, in the future as well, in future endeavors as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Asif. Thank you very much, all participants who joined with us through online, and the APO Secretariat and the staff. So, thank you very much. Have a good day for you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.